Okay, we ready? We're ready? Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting of the Board of Directors of Tacoma Public Schools for Thursday, August 23rd, 2018 to order. Would you please rise for the flag salute, and Director Hines, would you lead it tonight, please? Thank you.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
General Counsel would please call the roll.
Vice President Vial.
Here.
Director Winskill.
Here.
Director Hines.
Here.
Director Leon.
Here.
And is President Cobb excused?
Yes, she is. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adoption of the agenda. Vice President.
I move adoption of the agenda.
All right. Been moved and seconded to adopt the agenda. Are there questions or comments by members of the board on the agenda as presented? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Agenda is adopted. Item 5, recognition of staff, students, and community. There is none. What's going on here? Is this not on?
It's on.
Well, we can try that. All right. That better? All right. Thank you. Superintendent's report. Item number 6. Item 6.1, budget presentation. Mrs. Santorno, if you would, please.
I'd ask our CFO, Rosalind Medina, to please present the 2018-19 budget.
Thank you very much. I've asked our budget director to join me in case I have some questions or need some help. And is there a clicker? Will you hand me the clicker, please? Okay, good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. I appreciate this. We are going to have 3 goals for the presentation this evening. Generally speaking, we want to inform the board and the public of our intended budgeted use of resources, and we have several slides that will represent that. We would like to highlight some legislative, local, and fund balance impacts of the budget that we're recommending to you this evening. And then we have some required information that needs to be presented to you in order to adopt the budget that we would be presenting as well. So those are the goals of what we're trying to accomplish this evening. Before I get too far into it, an interesting letter was sent out yesterday by the Superintendent of Public Instruction, Chris Reichdahl. And in that letter, he outlined several risk factors that he identified as being potentially concerning for different school districts, depending on whether or not they met these risk factors, and that those risk factors should be a major consideration in the way that you analyze and review the impacts of your budget. And incidentally, Tacoma has met all 4 of those risk factors. And specifically speaking, those risk factors include that our salaries were greater than or equal to the state average salary. That used to be the staff mix factor and how much experience your individual staffs had. And new salary placements are not enough to cover the cost of current or revised salary amounts was another risk factor. That we did not qualify for an experience credit. So we are above the state average for our experience, but we weren't high enough above the state average in order to gain that experience factor, that credit. And that the district was losing 50% or more of their levy. And so those are all considerations that took play in how we developed this budget. Additionally, I think that we identified 2 locally that also caused us some level of concern as we were working to develop our budget. One of those was the regionalization rates for our district were lower than some of our competitors. We received a 12% rate, versus some school districts in the I-5 corridor that received an 18% rate. And some of our neighbors actually received a 0% rate. So some of that's very concerning that we are all in a competitive area and that we have different impacts based on that. And then lastly, that our fund balance reserves are the 2nd lowest in the state for top 10 school districts. So those are some of the considerations with which we built our budget. We did, after our last meeting, have additional budget outreach. We had talked about our budget survey being online when we met with you last in July, and we did receive 230 responses. We've summarized those responses and put them out on our website. You can find those at on the About tab, Departments and Programs Budget tab, and the survey results are right there for anyone to see. We do have some of the impacts of the requests that people requested are things that we are working towards, and so I think that it was really interesting feedback to help us as we move into our next budgeting cycle and help us realize that some of the things that people are interested in us making adjustments to are things that we are actively working on currently. We did hold 2 budget community sessions. We did one at Mount Tacoma and one here in this building, and we did have really good feedback and questions from the participants, and very appreciative of those who attended that meeting. And finally, for the future, as we work towards fall of 2018, we have 2 processes that we're going to be working towards as far as outreach is concerned. And with a crowd here, it'd be great if we had a number of the people who are represented here this evening wanting and willing to participate in our budgeting process. So one of those activities is a budget education and advisory committee, where we will seek the community input that I think that is required by the Government Finance Officers Association, best practices. And as well, we will be working on internally our budgeting by priorities process. This will be the year 1 next year of the budgeting by priorities process, and so we will go through a rigorous activity to try and align our resources to the strategic plan of the district. To talk briefly about our current strategic plan alignment, we have our 4 goals plus a support services activity. The way that we have been spending our money over the last 2 years is presented here on this slide. Nearly 71% of our resources are supporting academic excellence goals. 3.21% for the early learning activity, 1.4% for safety, 0.27% for partnerships, and 24% for support services. And support services is a broad category. It includes our nutrition services, transportation, maintenance, human resources, finance, any of the support activities that occur outside of a classroom. I think that it's important to note the one thing that hit me when I first read this slide was the safety impact. It actually declined from year 1 to year 2 of this biennial budget. And we wouldn't like to see large differences between the two. Generally speaking, we set our budget in year 1, and it's meant to be a 2-year cycle, so we wouldn't see large variances between the 2 years. But the safety impacts are really based on the fact that we'll be purchasing a number of equipment improvements out of our capital resources. And so it's not to say that we're investing less in safety and security, it's that we're going to be shifting some of those resources to another location. If I highlight our general fund budget, we will see revenues of we anticipate seeing revenues of $466,960,591. It's very specific, but these are the numbers that you'll be seeing on the resolution that you will be asked to approve this evening. That is a $45 million roughly increase over the 2017-18 year. And I'll get into more details around some of these. Our expenditures are anticipated at $466,885,000 and $885,637, an increase of approximately $35.7 million from 17-18. And lastly, our fund balance drawdown, while we will still be using $1.9 million of fund balance to support our ongoing activities, that's a $7.7 million decrease in the use of fund balance resources from prior year. On our revenue breakdown, we anticipate that the $45 million will come to us, $15 million of it dedicated to categorical and restricted spending. That will include CTE, highly capable, special education, ELL, and LAP dollars. $12 million of that is our one-time hold harmless that we received from the legislature, and the intent of those dollars were to assist us with our loss of levy funding. I think that the legislature has recognized the challenges that Tacoma School District faces, and even in light of the Reichdahl letter indicating our 4 risk factors, we are evidenced in a number of communications that we have seen that we do have a different scenario than many other districts. $2 million of our budget, our revenues will assist in technology subscriptions. This is a reimbursement to the general fund from the capital fund. And we had some other dollars that came in for federal and local dollars. An example of that would be the Wallace Grant or a small increase in Title II funding. And then we had $14 million of per student apportionment dollars. This is our basic education allocation. Those are the resources that we'll be receiving as we anticipate them in the current budget. On the expenditure side of things, we anticipating investing $16 million to our various salary and benefit costs. We anticipate that, we recommend, in our recommended budget, we anticipate that the drawdown of savings dollars, the drawdown of fund balance dollars will no longer occur, and so we've moved expenditures that were associated with that drawdown into the general fund. We have $12 million of levy expenditures that are associated with the one-time monies. And additionally, we have $3 million for a math adoption. We're planning for a math adoption over the next year or two. Our fund balance breakdown. We will be drawing down $1.9 million of fund balance. As I said earlier, that's $7.7 million less than what we've been taking out of our fund balance. Of the usage that we're anticipating, $2.3 million of that will be for programs that are required to have carryover. An example of that would be LAP. Monies that are left over at the end of the year are required to be carried forward and spent in future years, and so we're building the authority for that. $2.1 million will support our ongoing curriculum and instruction needs. And in order for us to continue funding those allocations and to be able to meet our fund balance reserve requirement, we'll be doing a reinvestment of $2.5 million back into the fund balance. To give you a more clear picture of what that could look like, I talked through our reserve plan. So we have had savings. Over a number of years, we've seen savings in our fund balance. We've spent less in expenditures than we've received in revenues, and so that goes into the savings account as an addition. We target to have a 1% savings each year. We were doing a lot better than that over a period of years, and recognize that those were now resources that were no longer going to support the students that were in the classroom at that time. And said that is not really an acceptable way for us to operate. We want the dollars that we're receiving in revenues to be expended on expenditures for the students that are sitting in classrooms right now and supporting the needs and the goals of those individual students. And so we set a target of 1%. We just want to make sure that we're doing financial justice to the district in doing that. Right now we're anticipating that we'll end the year potentially $3 million in savings. We will know more over the next month and a half. Our books don't close until the middle of September, technically August 31st, but we actually close them sometime around the middle of September. So on our 18-19 plan, we will anticipate the $5 million that'll be moving back over into the basic education world. We'll reinvest $2.5 million, and we anticipate having a fund balance of $28 million when we start the school year for 2018-19. That will represent a 6% fund balance. Our reserve requirement, as the board has directed us, is 5%. The Government Finance Officers Association recommends no less than 60 days of reserves plus circumstantial needs. Our current anticipated year-ending cash on hand would be a 38 days of cash on hand. So in the circumstances where there were a catastrophic event and we had to make payrolls without being able to receive revenues in, we would have enough resources to cover 38 days of regular operation. So our recommended budget for this evening that you will be asked to approve later in this board meeting includes the following four-year budget overview. For the 2018-19 year, we are anticipating local taxes to be around $60 million, and that represents $86 million of 2018 taxes and $38 million of 2019 taxes. So it's about half and half for each year. So it's a little more than what we'll be limited to when we get into the future years. As you'll see in the 1920 and 2021 years, the local revenues that we'll be able to collect from taxes will be significantly reduced. Our state basic education, this is the general allocations for the district, will be $230 million roughly for the 2018-19 year. And our restricted or categorical revenues will be $85 million. And then other revenues such as the federal dollars, non-tax local dollars, district revenues that we get from other school districts or grant revenues are included in that other category of $90 million roughly, for total revenues of $466,960,000 in the 18-19 year. On the expenditure side of that, you'll see salary and benefits included in our budget of $384.68 million and supplies, materials, and operating costs of $82 million. For the 1920, 2021, and 2022 budget outlooks or forecasts, we are now required by the state in this most recent legislative cycle, several cycles, we've been required to present a four-year outlook. This is the four-year outlook that is based off of assumptions in our system. We use a Forecast 5 tool. It's a software system that pulls data directly out of OSPI and reviews information that we have done in past years, trending information, and does a projection out. We've compared this back to OSPI's multi-year tool, which is a tool that tells us what they believe our revenues will be over the next several years, and we're a couple $1 million off from what they say, but we also budget for having fewer students. We do a discount, thank you. That's the word I'm looking for. We have a discount of our enrollment of a 0.05%, 0.5%. And that is just to anticipate in the situation where the district doesn't get enough students coming in the door that we have the ability to react nimbly. We built the expenditures associated with those future years in line with the revenues so that we know that we have to live within our means and we do not have a large fund balance reserve that we can draw from. And so you'll see that expenditures do reduce down in commensurate with what we have in the revenues. I had one other thought on that and it just escaped me. So for the 2018-19 year, we have four other funds, a debt service fund. The debt service fund is meant to service our interest and principal payments on the debt that we have. We have approximately $511 million of outstanding debt. That debt payment is anticipated at $56,510,913 for the 18-19 year. For the associated student body, these are special revenues that are held for student-related activities. These are fees that are collected from students. They are held in trust. These are not our dollars to expend. We anticipate what they're going to be, but the schools manage these dollars and the students decide how they're spent. And that will be expenditure authority of $3,892,695. The Transportation Vehicle Fund is set up by the state and requires us to use it to purchase all buses for student transportation. We are not able to buy buses out of the general fund. And that is going to be $2,780,000. We're planning for a minimum purchase of 6 buses, but we may purchase more buses than that. And so we are also, we're limited by expenditure authority. What you approve in the resolution this evening, if you approve what's in the resolution this evening, that provides us with what we're allowed to expend up to. For capital projects, this is what we're using to purchase technology through our capital levy, as well as to build buildings and upgrade and do major renovations to buildings. We are anticipating expenditures of $136,511,000, and I've listed there some schools that are in the construction or design phase just to give you an understanding of what we anticipate spending those resources on over the next year. I've provided here an other funds 4-year projection. I don't intend to go through all of these numbers, but they are highlighted on the resolution that is incorporated in your packet this evening. Just to briefly give you an understanding of where we're at with our new funding landscape, it's really imperative for us to be able to express that not all districts are funded equally. And while this is small, I apologize for it being small for those in the audience. This information is located on our website as well as in the agenda that is included this evening. But what you'll see is for school districts in different areas of the state, there are vastly different impacts. Lake Washington is one of those districts who has been considered a winner of revenues. And when we look at the 2018-19 impacts for Lake Washington, we see about a $68 million increase in revenues. If we look at Seattle, we'll see an $83 million increase. And when you look at Tacoma, you see a $26 million increase for the 18-19 year. When you add in that second year with the additional levy loss, so we don't receive any new state monies, but we do see another year of levy loss, well, Lake Washington has nearly no impact due to the second year of the levy loss. They'll stay at $65 million of new monies to their district. Seattle, which is twice the size, will receive nearly half the funds. And that's just an evidence of the disparity. When we look to Tacoma, we will actually lose money in relationship to these other districts over the 2-year period. If we were to go out and ask, if we were to be successful in asking our legislature to fund us or to allow us to collect the $2,500 that our voters approved, which would allow us to collect $25 million more than what we collect now, we would still be limited in that we will only receive $14 million of new revenues versus what Lake Washington will be receiving, which is $65. While we've talked about the levy losses, we've also lost a considerable amount of flexibility. So in the past, we had levy dollars that provided us with nearly 39% of our resources that we were able to choose how to spend. As the legislature pushes more dollars into the categorical programming, it puts us in a position where we have less flexibility and we're able to make less local decisions about how we use those resources. That 39% will drop down to 21% over the next 2 years. This slide is something that we've presented at our past budget presentation, and it talks through what our levy looks like in relationship to some of the other districts. Here in Tacoma, we will only be able to collect $1,300 per student in levy, as opposed to a Lake Washington or a Seattle or an Issaquah or a Bellevue or a Shoreline, where they're going to be above a $2,000 rate per student. Poor little Yakima, down with $457 per student, is even in a worse situation than us. What I think puts it into really a clear perspective from my point of view is that the free and reduced lunch rates of those individual districts speak to the fact that higher poverty districts have less ability to collect local revenues, and low poverty districts have a greater benefit. If you add the regionalization on there, as we were asked to do, you'll see that a number of those same districts with low poverty and the ability to collect a high amount per student also receive additional revenues to help fund their financial circumstances than Tacoma will. From our perspective, irrespective of the $2,500, our impacts currently aren't sustainable. We see a gap currently, and a gap means reductions, and so this is the lens with which we prepared our budget this evening. And I thank you for your time. There is, I'm happy to answer any questions. Excuse me.
Are there questions or comments by members of the board? Director Hines?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. If we could stay on slide 19. remind me again on regionalizational rate? I didn't realize that it even went up to 24%. I thought 18% was the highest. Is that a new category?
No, it's an anomaly. I'm not sure what the circumstances are surrounding why Shoreline was eligible for that 24%. But I believe that it doesn't stay at 24%. That it ratchets down over a period of time. But I'm not an expert in Shoreline's financial situation, so I'm not sure that I have much more to say than that.
And what's the difference? But what factors determine the difference between the regionalization rate? Why are we at 12% while like Washington and Issaquah and Bellevue are at 18?
I don't have a good rationale for you. I'm sorry.
Is it formula driven?
I believe that the legislature has a formula that they have presented, but it didn't make sense to me as to how it came about, and it didn't make sense to me in relationship to how we were impacted in relationship to some of our surrounding districts. I would say that there's no reason why our school district shouldn't be in the same competitive bracket as every school district on the I-5 corridor, and that what we will be fighting for in the legislature this year will include the ability to collect a regionalization factor of 18% so that we can maintain competitiveness.
Have we calculated if we were at, say, the 18% versus the 12%, how much more revenue we'd have?
Approximately $7 million.
When we look at the four-year projection for funding salaries, what is the reason for the dip?
Do you mean this slide here, slide 12?
Yes.
I'm sorry? Right, yeah. So we kept our revenues and our expenditures equal. We made equal reductions to both. The MSOC, the material supplies and operating
So it's proportional and
costs.
it reflects the...
That was the intent.
Okay. And when I read the reserve that we're right around 28 million, so if we receive 12 million this year as the one-time fix, if that doesn't get corrected or put back into the state's biennial budget, then in 2 years we would have no reserve.
If we were to utilize all of our savings in order to account for that loss of revenue, yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Rosalind, I have a quick question on some of that salary. I was looking through some of the stuff that came out of OSBI yesterday, and our current average salary is $76,000 per year. Is that correct? And yet we're only going to be funded at 73. Is that a correction? Then actually about a 4% reduction in the amount of salary dollars we are going to be receiving from the state. Did I read that correctly?
That is, it was pretty close. We have presented this slide, slide 22, which is in the appendix, and our current, our anticipated 2018-19 salary funding level from the state will be $73,000 per funded staff. So per
Correct.
funded staff, we have a number of staff that are outside of that
No, I
formula.
want the funded staff that we actually
Right.
receive from the state, that we are going to be $3,000 almost per person lower than
Right.
what we are getting now. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. So that's more that we have to make up to maintain current salary levels, correct? Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Director Hunt.
I have one more for the superintendent. I know we sent the letter to the state legislative delegation expressing our concerns. Have we had a response back from them?
Not yet, no.
From any of them?
No, I've seen some comments in, in different media outlets that they have, that they have recognized and that they understand that that a fix is going to happen.
But they've not formally responded to our letter.
To us, no.
May I make one last comment if you're... I just want to thank the staff. Kristen Bell, our budget director, in addition to her team, dedicated countless hours, and it would be remiss of me not to recognize their incredible efforts. 50, 60, 70-hour weeks they gave up every Friday they had this summer. So thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to...
Okay.
I'd like to echo that. I know the hours that get put in, been there and done that. And particularly when, for those of you who don't know, at one time my job was assistant director and later deputy director of the Washington State of the Office of Financial Management under Governor Evans when we went through major budget cuts and cut almost 1/2 of the state budget. So I know the hard work that you guys put in, and I do appreciate it. It may not be what everybody thinks it is, but I know there's many hours that I've seen your car here when other people's is gone, and this is not easy work. And if anybody thinks it is, it's hard, it's stressful, and it's difficult, particularly when we do not get the support from Olympia that we so very much deserve. And I am hoping that our legislators will respond. I'm hearing, oh, well, we're going to take care of this, or we're not going to take care of that, and we heard that last year. And they can bear the brunt of the cuts that will have to be made here, and believe me, it will not be pretty. So thank you.
Thank you
All
for the
right.
time.
So I have one question.
Director Winskill.
And that has to do with that 75 versus the 73, 1,000 or 76 versus 73.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is staff mix part of that issue? Is that going to fall into, because of this new staff mix or the lack of staff mix, is that going to exacerbate that situation?
Yes. The fact that we will no longer be funded based on the experience level of our teachers puts us in a situation where the more experienced staff that we have, any experience of staff that we have beyond what the state average is, puts us at a detrimental funding position. And we value the experience of the team that we have in front of our students, and I think that the state should value that as well. So
Yes, and I've said that before, and I want to say again that that's very troubling to me that anyone with some who are seasoned teachers who want to come to this district, or it's not going to be a good situation for us or for them. So I value people with experience, and that's something I hope can be fixed with the legislature also.
thank you.
Okay, thank you. Moving on. Oh, a minute here. What number are we here? All right, public hearing, adoption of the 2018-2019 budget. The Board of Directors of Tacoma Public Schools will hold a public hearing regarding the 2018-2019 budget. Anyone wishing to appear and to be heard for or against as part of the proposed 2018-2019 budget. A copy of the proposed resolution is at the Budget Office at General Administration Building, and a copy will be furnished to anyone who may request one. Mrs. Santorno, do we have people wishing to comment on the budget?
I don't have any. We have lots of cards that say budget, but I don't have any that say really want to talk about the actual budget adoption process. Is there anyone who wants to speak to that?
Okay, if not, then I will declare that public hearing closed. All right, moving on. Members of the board, members of the public wishing to address the board. And before I get there, I want to remind everyone that we pride ourselves on civility and respect here. And under the Open Meetings Act, people who interrupt meetings can be asked to leave. And so that I hope that this will be a civil and respectful meeting. I know most of you, and I think you know us, and we are here to hear, and we hope that that will be respectful, so that we ask that audience members be respectful and follow our public comment guidelines. Before we get started, because we have so many, we're going to limit public comment tonight to 2 minutes, so that you will get you have a 2-minute timer up there, and you'll get a ding at 1 minute, and then you'll get another one when you're finished. And I ask you to please conclude your remarks at that end of that time. All right. School board members encourage public participation. Your civic input, your civil input is appreciated. If you would like to address the board, we'd ask you to follow the following steps. Complete a citizen's request card I got new glasses that have different levels on them, so please bear with me. A citizen's request to speak card, which is located at the back of the auditorium. Submit the card to the board secretary prior to the start of the meeting. Card submitted after public comment period has ended will not be considered at that session. The superintendent will call your name when it is your turn to speak to address the school board. Please speak into the microphone, and you have up, as I said, to 2 minutes for your comment. So we welcome your comment as always and take it under consideration. So Mrs. Santorno, if you would start, please. And I think she's going to call more than, are you going to do one at a time so that you can hear your name? You can kind of, we'll let you line up over there now. The fire marshal isn't here.
What I'd like to do is call the first person and give the next two. So if there's somebody who's not in here and you know they're out in the overflow room, if you'd go get them, that'd be great, okay? So first, we're going to have the first three are Bonnie O'Leary, Jillian Gutierrez, and Grace Fortson. So Bonnie?
Good evening. I'm one of the school nurses, and I have a question about the budget. Last month, when everything was listed, it had classified and had itemization, but instead of certificated, it just had teachers. There was nothing that showed anything about the other certificated, the nurses, the therapists, anybody else who's certificated. So it didn't show the FTE breakdown, and it did not show the budget breakdown. On the website, it still doesn't show that. So it's really hard to vote on something if we don't know what that clarification is. And that's really what I want to know. Even tonight it says certificated instructional. Doesn't really designate the other certificated staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jillian Gutierrez. And after Jillian is then Grace and then Michelle Piggott.
Hi, my name is Jillian Gutierrez. I am a kindergarten teacher at Maryland Elementary, and I'm also the TEA Vice President. As an educator, I understand tight budgets. I understand prioritizing. I do it all the time. But when you prioritize, you have to think about your essentials first. And in our school district, we say every student, every day, which means that our students are our priorities and our essentials. And that means that your teachers and your paraeducators and everyone that works directly with students are your essentials and should be your priorities. Our district needs to make teachers and paraeducators a priority. Many other districts have done this. Spokane, for example, which is a similar size to us, spends only $20 million on their upper admin, where we spend $30 million. That other $10 million goes to their teaching staff. Districts around us, such as University Place, Peninsula, South Kitsap, North Mason, Bremerton, Central Kitsap, all with lower costs of living, have shown that they prioritize their teachers.
You have one more.
One more minute.
One more
Thank
minute.
you. We ask that Tacoma does the same thing. This January, my family is going to grow by one, and we'll have 4 people. Okay. We are a 2-teacher household, a 2 Tacoma School District teacher household, and we work with our neediest students. I don't know how we are going to make ends meet when our baby comes. I have 3 weeks of sick leave total that I'm able to use. And without a livable wage, I don't know how we will survive with our family. And many other Tacoma teachers are in similar situations to us. We are not asking for anything that's unreasonable, but we are asking for you to consider giving Tacoma teachers and paraeducators a living wage. Start making us a priority and give us a livable wage that we deserve. Thank you.
Let's hold it down so we can move on and get this over with.
So we're going to go Grace.
So everybody gets an opportunity to speak. We have enough time. So
Great.
we can keep the, I ask you to hold it down, and that includes applause and yelling and so on. So this is a business meeting of the Board of Directors of Tacoma Public Schools. and we have opportunity for public comment. And I expect it, please, to be respectful, just as I did when I was mayor, City of Tacoma, for the City Council. And if we are respectful to each other, it is much easier for us to work together and make the right decisions for the kids of Tacoma. Thank you.
Grace Fortson, then Michelle Piggott, then Samuel Zook. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. My name is Grace Fortson. I've recently graduated from high school, and I'm a product of the public school system through and through. The teachers responsible for my education have shaped how I view the world and provided me the tools to jump into it feet first. It has been teachers who have taught me about building communities. It has been teachers who have taught me that people have more things to agree on than to disagree on. It has been my teachers who have taught me how public transportation works in New York City, Washington, D.C., and Vancouver. It has been my teachers who have challenged me intellectually, creatively, and socially while encouraging me and helping me achieve my goals. It is because of my teachers that I am now able to pursue my passions in international policy. This isn't just because of the teachers I was fortunate enough to be in class with, but the one that I was fortunate enough to be born to. My mom, a music teacher, has taught me the importance of independence, tenacity, and persistence. She's a fierce woman who has supported our little family as a single mother and a public teacher. Alternatively, it is the lack of prioritization of teachers' pay that teaches me that teachers are not valuable resources to our community. It teaches me that education, my education, is not worth enough to pay the ones who are instructing me. And it teaches me that I may have to choose between my passion and a paycheck. Now, I believe that budgets are complicated. Believe me, I know, watching my mom struggle as a single mom, I know that budgets are complicated. But I believe that you have a magnificent opportunity in front of you right now to change that narrative. I imagine that all of you have been inspired by a teacher at least once in your lifetime. And you have a chance to give them fair compensation for the endless hours they spend changing the world for children like you and me. For children who've grown up to achieve the dreams they could not have without our teachers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle, and then Samuel, then Danielle Panzavikius, I think.
Hi, I'm Michelle Piggott, and I have a couple of my students here to support teachers and to remind us of all why we're here. So, our district is losing, and I'm very upset also. The district is losing because of its priorities and where it places value. When you value something, you make it work. You find ways to spend less money on other things. I don't have much extra money, but I spent about $300 in my classroom because I value my students and my school. Tacoma Public Schools doesn't seem to value the students or teachers. You claim you don't have enough money, but you found money to approve a raise for the superintendent. You found money to create more non-classroom teaching positions to perpetuate the class size myth. You found money to pay for a negotiator, and who knows what other new positions at CAB. When my students enter my classroom, they know they are valued, not only because I spent my money to make it look good, but because of my actions. I treat them with respect, I give them my trust, and I meet their needs. If you really value teachers and students, you would do the same. Retaining teachers who are experienced and involved in our community should be the priority. Now, I know we cost more, and hiring brand new teachers would save money. I've heard that at a board meeting. The school I work at is hard. We have a core group of about 12 teachers that stay, and the rest move on after a couple of years. Our families value the relationships with their teachers. The longer you stay, the more credible you are. So every year when students enter classrooms with new staff members, it takes time to build that trust. It's hard to teach a child when the parents aren't on board. Our school stands to lose a lot if CAB keeps placing their priorities at CAB. You should be doing everything you can to keep us, because we are the ones teaching the future of Tacoma.
Samuel Zook, Danielle, and then Shannon Ergen.
How are you? My name is Samuel, and I'm a volunteer and a parent at McCarver. I've been doing it for 3 years, and the teachers are much appreciated because of their interest in my kids. My kids come home They play teacher, and they copy the teachers, and they play till they go to bed. I mean, it's obvious they're making an impact with my kids. And by us being able to volunteer, me and my wife have been doing it 3 years because the teachers need to be more appreciated because we want to step it up. We come in and put our hands on and help get involved, play soccer, tutor, and everything in that matter to keep helping the kids move forward. My kids are moving forward like no other, and I'm so proud of them, and I'm a proud dad. Thank you.
Thank you.
Danielle, Shannon, and then Skylar Broadwell.
Hi, I'm Danielle Pansevicius, and I teach at Bose Elementary. Tacoma boasts of its innovative schools and its graduation rates. You have nothing to brag about if you do not pay all of us who are innovative and dedicated education professionals a competitive wage. Instead, your legacy will be the mass exodus of those who made those innovative schools and increased graduation rates possible. The money is there. Pay a competitive wage to retain and attract more to make Tacoma School District an inspiration and leader to all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Shannon, and then Skylar, and then Gina Coleman.
Hi, I'm Shannon Aragon. I have 21 years of experience in education, 11 years in this district. I've been on the bargaining team since 2014, and I'm a parent of 2 kids going into 4th and 6th grade at Bryant. So I have a full spectrum of understanding of the situation in our district. I have seen the budget reports. I have heard the arguments on both sides. I have heard your priorities, and I've seen how that plays out in practice. In my years as my children, and my years here as my children have grown up, I have had to make choices. I have had to prioritize what my own children can have access to. But it's been based not only on my values and my beliefs, but also on your values and your beliefs. Why? Because when your budget doesn't prioritize educators and our compensation, my budget has to cut the very expanded and extended learning opportunities that we know help students to be successful in their futures. When you prioritize a top-heavy admin and don't budget for educator compensation, I have to reprioritize my budget and decide whether my kids can participate in swim team and soccer, or if it must be an either-or. The state constitution prioritizes education. The state Supreme Court prioritizes education and compensation. The legislature prioritizes salary increases. I know. I have talked to each of our legislators and the Supreme Court members. However, Tacoma Public Schools prioritizes management, testing, and hoarding funds. That means I get to tell these two that your priorities have negatively impacted their opportunities for current and future success. That certainly doesn't sound like every student every day.
Skylar, Gina Coleman, and then Jana Fullerton.
Hi, my name is Skylar Broadwell. I'm 28 years old who wants to go back to school to become a teacher. I wanted to become a teacher, however, through research and talking to the local teachers, it's very clear to me that they do not make enough money. I would have to spend at least $40,000 to even get close to a master's degree, to even move up on the salary schedules. The amount of hours, 80 plus hours a week, weekdays, weekends, holidays, the amount of work we have to put in. It's just very clear to me that that is not the profession that I want to go into anymore. Starting doctors make an average about $190,000 a year to save lives. Starting teaching position is $40,000 a year to build and create lives. That doesn't make any sense to me. Teachers build futures. They help our kids to become doctors, lawyers, law enforcement, the very things that we rely on in our lives every day. We need to have happy, well-paid teachers to continue building those futures. Let's do the right thing by paying teachers more so young adults will pick this profession as a career and continue successfully educating our students. Thank you.
Gina Coleman, followed by Jana Fullerton, and then Barb Randall Sela.
Good evening, respected members of the board, Superintendent Santorno. I'm Gina Coleman, Nutrition Services Manager at Largemont Elementary in East Tacoma. I want you to know that I understand the sacrifice you've made by serving as a school board member. We don't always see the countless hours you give to our district. Speaking as the president of our local Tacoma Union, I speak for my members when I say that we are proud to prepare and serve over 1 million meals a year to our students. I happen to believe in the phrase, you can't teach a hungry student. While I have no intention of discussing specific wage proposals before the school board, I do want to share some information in the spirit of transparency. Were you aware that according to OSPI wage data of the largest 20 Puget Sound school districts, Tacoma School District food service workers are the lowest paid at nearly 15% below average? Nutrition services managers' pay is as much as $3 per hour below average. On top of our wage disparity, we can't get people to work for the wages we are paid, leaving as much as 15% of our positions unfilled. It is pushing us to the breaking point. Most of us stay because we care about our community and we feel a sense of commitment to our students, but we can't survive on what we make and we can't get people to work on what we get paid. As managers, we lead, guide, and coordinate the work of cashiers and helpers. We are required to use independent judgment in managing financial and human resources. Our cashiers have one of the hardest jobs of assuring that all meals are accounted for as required by the state auditor, as well as managing the heartbreaking situation of students that lack the ability to pay. Our helpers and substitutes keep our kitchen clean and healthy. We're not asking for the moon, we're just asking to be brought up to the average.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Jenna Fullerton, and then Barb Randall, and then Grant Ruby.
For the last 10 years, I've had the privilege of teaching at Bryant Montessori. When I started there, the district graciously sent me to Montessori training, and then I taught for 8 years in first, second, and third grade, which we call lower elementary. 2 years ago, I got promoted, and now I teach middle school math at Bryant. It's been a great 2 years, but because I wasn't trained in secondary Montessori, it felt like I could understand the language, but I couldn't speak it. So this summer, the district graciously approved funds to send me to Montessori secondary training, and I did 2 weeks, and things are starting to make sense. And I have begun to see the beauty of the secondary Montessori program that has been created by Bryant. Some of our founding members are still there and mentoring me. I've seen how it works for kids, and I've seen how it helps them grow into the amazing adults that they can be. I'm going off script a little bit here, but one of the most important things to me is my daughter just graduated from the Bryant Montessori program, and it's really awesome to come to work every day and love what you do and know it's meaningful. But as a mom, when you see your kid in middle school grow and thrive and be everything she's supposed to, that's what gets me in my heart. So I'm just here to say thank you for supporting the alternative programs here for our kids and helping them to thrive here in Tacoma.
Thank you.
Barb Randall, and then Grant Ruby, and then Liesl Sandkyle.
Hello, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. I've been with this district for 43 years. I do it because I love the kids. This is my profession. I just want to say a few things about paraeducators. We give 110%. You put in my time thinking it was going to solve the issue of paying them for the amount of work they do. It doesn't work. Paras come in early, have their alarm set, go clock in, they work all day, clock out, and go right back to work. You continue to cut our hours, you continue to take things away from us, and yet the work keeps getting done. It's because we're dedicated and we love the kids and we love what we're doing. I was reading through your budget report today, and it said that classified employees make $54,000 and some odd, I can't remember exactly. It was $54,000. I wish in my 43 years that once I could have made $54,000. I'm lucky if I make $24,000 a year. I have parents that are working 2 and 3 other jobs to make ends meet. Whenever you cut our hours, their insurance goes double. Our insurance is based on the number of hours you work. I sat here and I started figuring out the average for our paras. By the time I figured out the taxes, by the time I figured out for a single mom, not counting her kids, just her, they're down there at $15,000 and $16,000. That's why we have to do more than one job in order to make it feasible for us to keep working and taking care of our kids and loving what we do. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Grant Ruby, and then Liesl Stankyle.
Good evening, school board directors, superintendent, deputy superintendent. I'm a secondary math teacher at Lincoln High School starting my 5th year. I have 3 points to make. The first of which I believe we will all agree on. It is important to attract quality educators at every level in Tacoma. I was attracted to Tacoma because it has been a world-class school district. However, I fear that that will not be so in the near future. The reason for my suspicion is the seeming lack of interest from this body to attract and retain quality educators. With nearby districts such as South Kitsap, University Place, Steilacoom, those two just today, offering tens of thousands of dollars more in base salary, it would be more than worth the toll each day to receive adequate compensation. Secondly, thanks to the 2.5% salary increase that TEA bargained in the current CBA, my salary will be $63,155. You are offering me and my fellow educators an astounding 0.6% raise on top of that, which would get me to $63,534. In case you didn't catch it, you're offering me a raise of less than $400. That's more insulting than the $500 check you sent me last spring. Tacoma Public Schools has been given $32 million by the state of Washington for teacher salary. This is to repay teachers who have been woefully underpaid for decades. I know teachers have been underpaid because the state lost a lawsuit when the Washington State Supreme Court decided the McCleary case. $32 million. And you're offering me less than $400. This will not keep me in Tacoma. As I stated at a previous board meeting, I have updated my resume and intend to look for positions outside of Tacoma if I am not adequately compensated while nearby districts are showing respect to their staff by paying them competitive salaries. Finally, there is no 3.1% cap. State Superintendent of Public Instruction Chris Reichdahl wrote an open letter that very clearly debunking the 3.1 myth. Additionally, 27th LD Representatives Lori Jenkins and Jake Fye wrote a letter to this board reinforcing that there is no 3.1% cap. Let's work together. Let's work together to attract and retain great educators by using the funds from the state the way they are intended for salary.
Thank you.
Lisa Stanton.
Members of the board, Acting President Vial, Student Representative, Superintendent Santorno. My name is Lisa Stanton.
Could you start over again, please? We couldn't hear you. Thank you.
Members of the board, Acting President Vial, Student Representative, Superintendent, and Vice and Deputy Superintendent Garcia. My name is Liesl Sandkyle. I speak as a parent with students in this district, as an active and engaged member of the education sector here in Tacoma, and as an advocate and active supporter of local levies and bonds to positively support and improve our education system here in Tacoma. I know that there are difficult decisions facing the board and administration as you move to pass the budget at this point in the year and look toward the beginning of the next school year as well. I know that the legislature's actions earlier this year, although described as leveling the playing field in our state regarding distribution of the state dollars for education and increasing funding overall for education, actually created adverse effects here for the Tacoma Public School budget. I will gladly testify at the legislative level for a fix for Tacoma in the 2019 session, as I do not want significant staff and program cuts this year or next. In particular, I do not like the cap on local levies. Although I greatly value the TPS teaching staff, I do not agree that this is the year to increase the pay scale much past the cost of living increase of 3.1%, when we are uncertain about whether or not the legislature will demonstrate the wisdom to prioritize districts like Tacoma and give us that extra budget fix. I realize that the pressure is great to increase teacher salaries, but it will likely have significant and costly consequences as early as next year. These could include reductions in the workforce for TPS staff and cuts to valuable programs such as early childhood education that make a difference for our students. The district faces an estimated $25 million deficit this coming year, and it is not the time to increase salaries significantly. And if the district does give into that pressure, it will adversely affect those newer teachers in the system, as they are more likely to be impacted by a RIF, or reduction in the workforce, next year when the fiscal reality hits us full on. I do believe we need to be fiscally responsible and have sufficient reserves in our fund balance. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you.
That's the last public comment.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. This will close public comment. Moving on, item 9, consent agenda. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
I move adoption of the consent agenda.
Second.
Well, wait a second.
I seconded.
Oh, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments of the consent agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent agenda is adopted. Okay, let me get going here. Okay. Item 10, policy matters. There are none on our agenda tonight. Item number 11, quarterly financial update. Financial statements are found on the district website at tacomaschools.org. Moving on, item 12, curriculum instruction. There are none. Item 13, business matters. 13.1, approval of resolution 2045 outstanding warrants. Ms. Medina, is this yours?
Yes. The Chief Financial Officer recommends that the Board of Directors adopt resolution number 2045, canceling warrants that have remained outstanding for over 1 year.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Are there any questions or comments by members of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-0. Pardon me. Item number 13.2, approval of resolution number 2046, adopting the 2018-19 budget. Ms. Medina, if you would, please.
The Chief Financial Officer recommends that the Board of Directors adopt resolution number 2046, providing for the adoption of the 2018-19 budget.
I'll move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any further questions or comments by members of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Resolution is adopted 4-0. Item 13.3, award transportation contracts for McKinley-Vento and Head Start students. Again, Ms. Medina.
The Chief Financial Officer recommends that the Board of Directors authorize the Superintendent to award and sign contracts with A&A Transportation, Inc. and American Logistics Company for transportation services for McKinney-Vento and Head Start students for the period August 27, 2018 through August 31, 2021.
I'll move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? Only comment I have, this is the same company, is it not, that we have used before?
No, we have...
Oh, it is. I'm sorry. That's
Yes.
what I wanted you to have talked about a little bit.
We have diverged from paratransit.
Okay.
And we did an RFP, request for proposal, where we sought requests from appropriate vendors. We did a rating system and made a determination that these two vendors together will provide us with better services for our homeless and Head Start students.
Thank you. Any other questions, please? Okay. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries 4-0. Other business, Item 14, other business. 14.1, approval of Foss High School softball field and construction. I'm sure that they will be happy that they don't have to play in the swamp anymore. Chris?
The Chief Operating Officer recommends that the Board of Directors authorize the superintendent and/or designee to award the contract to Specialized Landscaping for construction of the new softball field at Falls High School in the amount of $1,744,054 plus tax. Funding source, capital projects bond as approved by voters on February 12, 2013.
I'll move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there questions or comments of Chris? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, motion is adopted. Item, I'm having trouble with this thing tonight for some reason. 14.2, approval of interlocal agreement with Pierce Conservation District for community garden at Roosevelt Elementary.
The Chief Operating Officer recommends that the Board of Directors authorize the superintendent to enter into an interlocal agreement between Pierce Conservation District and Tacoma School District for a community garden at Roosevelt Elementary commencing September 1, 2018 through August 31, 2023. Funding source, no cost to the district.
I'll move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. I think this is a great opportunity for us because that piece of property, I used to sub up at Roosevelt and spent some time up there. That's just always kind of been an eyesore over there, and I think this is a great opportunity for us in conservation and for the neighborhood to have a nice community garden over there. And I thank you for your work on that, and I also thank City Council Member Ryan Mello, who is the director of the Pierce Conservation thing, for his work on this also. So thank you.
Madam Vice President,
yes.
I had a comment as well.
Go.
Thank you. So a few months ago when this process began, the Pierce County Conservation District staff reached out. They were frustrated with how negotiations were proceeding. And I know I brought that concern back, and I appreciate that you've continued to talk. I think face-to-face conversation is a very effective way to get to yes. And last night, for confirmation, I reached back to this same group, and they said that they were very pleased with what we were able to come up with. So thank you from me, and I think the rest of the board, for taking what was a little bit of a challenging process to begin with and coming to an agreement that benefits both parties and the community.
The price is right.
Yeah, that's what we like. Tight budgets are right. All right, all those in favor of adoption signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. We'll look forward to going up and seeing the garden once it's done. Oh, motion is adopted. Item 14.3, approval of interlocal cooperative agreement with Clover Park Technical College for Educational Services 2018-2021. Superintendent Pace.
Thank you. The Assistant Superintendent of K-12 Support recommends approval of an interlocal cooperative agreement between Clover Park Technical College and Tacoma School District Number 10 for educational services from 2018 through 2021.
I'll move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Pardon me, are there any questions or comments by members of the board? Hearing none, all those in favor of adoption signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries 4-0. Item 14.4, approval of maximum allowed construction costs, MAC, Amendment 2 for the contract between Tacoma School District Number 10 and Corsmo Construction. And Debbie, I'm going to let you handle the next, I think it's 3 of them. We have 1, 2, is it 3 we have, Chris, for Corsmo?
Just one for Corsmo.
Or just one for Corsmo, okay, so.
Oh, you need to
Yeah, it's 'cause of my-
I think you can just stay
I
there.
just sit here.
Yeah,
and
just
I'll
sit
have to
there.
get
Okay.
The Chief Operating Officer recommends that the Board of Directors approve the Mini-MAC Amendment Number 2, which states the maximum allowable construction costs for the second 5 bid packages on the Grant Center for the Expressive Arts Replacement Project, and authorize the superintendent or designee to sign said Mini-MAC Amendment Number 2 in the amount of $13,452,247, excluding sales tax. Funding source, capital projects bond, as approved by voters on February 12, 2013.
Have a motion, please.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it 3-0 with one abstention.
Thank you. I recuse myself because a member of my family is a senior construction superintendent with Corsmo Construction, so that's why I did not vote. You want that?
Yeah.
Read that back?
Okay.
Thank you. All right, moving on. Item 14.5, authorization of right-of-way deed with the City of Tacoma for Grant Center for Expressive Arts Replacement Construction Project.
The Chief Operating Officer recommends that the Board of Directors authorize the superintendent or her designee to execute right-of-way deed number 7400 with the City of Tacoma for the redevelopment under the construction permit for Grant Center for the Expressive Arts.
Move approval.
Second.
Is there any questions or comments on this?
A question.
Director Hines.
You indicated no fiscal impact at this time. Do we anticipate future fiscal impact?
Well, absolutely. It's just a formality that when we conduct any construction project, we're responsible for some of the upgrades in the surrounding area. So this is already built into our existing budget.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion is adopted for approval to negotiate and award design-build contract with Absher Construction to provide alternative method of construction for Hunt Middle School.
The Chief Operating Officer recommends that the Board of Directors approve the superintendent to negotiate and award contract to Absher Construction for the design-build alternate method for Hunt Middle School.
I'll move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any questions or comments? I have one. I know that the West End that I live in and neighborhood are going to be very happy to hear that they once again are going to have a middle school, and it's going to be a reality. And I thank you for all the hard work. And Debbie, I thank you for sitting in on the architects thing because I was not able to do so. So thank you. All right. Any other questions or comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion is adopted. Moving on, item number 14.7, approval of interlocal agreement with Metropolitan Park District of Tacoma for the provision of instructional services. Is that you, Ms. Trueblood?
It is. Thank you,
Thank
Vice
you.
President Vial. The General Counsel recommends the board approve the interlocal agreement with the Metropolitan Park District of Tacoma for the provision of instructional services.
I'll move approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or comments? Well, I have one comment. I did read through it, and I think it's an expansion of the wonderful partnerships that we have developed. Thank you to Sean Silva and Superintendent Santorno and the members of the Metropolitan Park Board that we have been able to build this kind of a program, and all of our kids are going to benefit with additional programs and opportunities. I saw the Thrive kids are going to get to go in the kayaks. I think I want to go too. So anyway, and Renee, I want to thank you for your hard work. I know this took a little while to get done. Dr. Garcia, did you have anything you want to add to this? Well, that's okay.
Thank
All
you very
right.
much, and I'd just like to acknowledge Mark Roberts, the General Counsel for Metropolitan Park District, that our partnership, I think, he really helped make this happen.
Great. That's what happens when we learn how to work together. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion is adopted 4-0. Report to the board, item 15, there is none. Board comments and reports. Dr. Leon, do you have anything you want to add?
So it's more of a question from a couple constituents. It's on a topic we already voted in approval of. I didn't bring it up then because I was, so it regards the administrative trip to Samoa in November. My constituents were wondering about the cost-benefit analysis of the trip, but I was told that it comes from some kind of grant that has not come out of our budget. So if we could maybe get a little explanation on that, just for there may be more constituents out there wondering about that. So there are several questions, some are from them and some are from mine. I'll just give you all the questions and you can maybe answer them, even though it's approved. So how many total Samoan students are there in our district? How many new ones are there every year? And what are the examples of things that the administrators need to learn about working with the Samoan population? Is this newly immigrant people, or could you explain that to us?
So the Korean fund is actually, I believe it's, Rosalind can help me, it's a trust fund. So it's a total private group of funds that is not governed by any of the policies or the procedures or the budget issues with Tacoma Public Schools. The fund was developed for the exact purpose of why we use it, which is for our immigrant populations to, they want the Korean delegation, actually it's amazing because it goes beyond Korea, to get us familiar and to understand what's going on with different cultures of from which our immigrants come. This trip was actually proposed by Lua Pritchard, who's in charge of the Asian Pacific Cultural Center, and she has a desire for us to understand the culture of the islands where our students come from. They're another group of our students that are underperforming, and so there's just a desire to see some of the some of their history, some of their culture, some of their leaders, and to learn more about how we can serve their needs. I don't know the number. We'll have to get back to you with the number of Samoans that West Pacific Islanders that we serve, and how many come every year. I don't know the answer to that, but we can get that information for you.
If I could add something to that, I know when this foundation was set up, and it was set up by longtime Consul General to Seattle, Kim, and he has now since retired, wanting to because of our large Korean population here in Tacoma, to help us better understand the Asian population in Tacoma. And this fund was set up, and I know that Manon Hodge, Dr. Hodge was involved in that, so that we could travel and that they could pay for it because of the expense of it, and at the same time understand. Lua Pritchard at one time headed the Korean Women's Association, and she was very instrumental this was about 6-7 years ago when this happened. And I happen to know Mr. Kim from my days as mayor. He was the Consul General, and he very much wanted to acknowledge the presence of our large Korean community here, and also help us as a community better understand the culture of many of our newcomers, that being our Samoan population since the 1990s has grown rather rapidly and rather significantly, so that we can better address the needs of our kids. And this is a wonderful opportunity for Carla and whoever, if she chooses to go, or whoever goes from the staff, to really interface with people over in the island. So I didn't mean to jump in, but I know I met with Consul General Kim and had that opportunity to discuss with him this project, and it has been fully funded, and they maintain that. And as you know, Lua is the head of the Asian Pacific Alliance out there, and has been a amazing member of our community for many, many years. So that's just why we get this opportunity, and I can understand why people ask. I mean, we usually explain it, so thank you for asking.
Yeah. About 2.8% of our student population.
Of our kids.
Okay, so it's good for them to understand that the travel expenses don't come out of our budget. Nope. They were also wondering about the lost productivity of those 5 administrative people being gone for a week, what the cost-benefit analysis is for what we're getting out of it. Personally, I think it's important to understand other cultures, and but then is this a one-time thing? Are we going to, somebody could argue, are we going to all the other countries that we have immigrants from to do similar things? And at what point is the cost-benefit worth sending? How many administrative people to other countries?
So, well, again, and we would cease to go if we didn't have money from the Korean fund. And Manon's not here, so I can't ask, but I'm pretty sure that we need to get approval from the Korean delegation about if they think it's a group that we can look. We have looked at several different immigrant populations. We had administrators go to Vietnam and to China, to Korea. So we are looking at different countries, and we did talk about American Samoa because it's a small island, but on the other hand, we have some great contributions from some of our Pacific Islander populations, and it is an underperforming population. The administrators that are going are administrators that are in schools that serve that population, and we do take a look at the kind of support they're going to need while they're on the trip.
Okay, thank you.
Great. Director Hines, you have anything?
I do. I have a question on our policy and procedure on when for playgrounds and fields, when they're open and when they're closed. I know there's been a number of questions that I've received from the east side with Whitman specifically, which I would be interested to know what the current policy and procedure is and how we ensure that there's continuity throughout the district.
Mr. Chalk, would you come join us at the podium? Mr. Williams, would your team field this?
Oh, so Tom. I've seen him for a long time.
Good evening, Superintendent, Deputy Superintendent, Directors. The answer to your question is the playgrounds will be open during all non-school hours. So about 6 a.m. we'll go in and lock the doors, lock the gates, open them back up around 4 in the afternoon. Open them back up at around 4 in the afternoon, lock them again about 9 in the evening, and then on the weekends we'll leave them open. So our policy right now is to have complete access to the playgrounds throughout the district.
There are individual situations where we work with local police where the playground has become a dangerous situation from outside the school community influences. And so one of our, Mr. Chalk has helped work with the Public Information Office to figure out what is the communication protocols that can be established to notify local communities when that happens, when we're seeing an increase, not only for that the playground may be secured, but also from a public awareness and safety of what's going on in the neighborhood.
And I'd like to make certain I understood you. You said at 6 a.m. they're locked?
We'll begin to lock when we come to school and the kids begin to arrive at school, we'll lock the gates. So it's just the children that are allowed on the property. Also, if there's events in the evenings, we'll maintain the property to be locked, but otherwise it'll be open to the public.
And that's during the school year. What's the practice during summer and vacation?
Summer will be open all up and through about 9 p.m. in the evening on the weekends, so we can lock it, but open it back up I apologize. Make sure it's open on the weekends to our constituents. Only closed during school hours.
So in the summer months,
it'll be open.
It is open during.
Yes.
Yes, already is. Geiger's already open. I noticed they've been open.
Yeah, they're all open during the summer months. I know there was some issues at Whitman.
Yeah.
We uncovered those. We resolved that issue. There was some vandalism. There was some illegal activity going on at Whitman, and that's one of the reasons the administrators at Whitman chose to close the playground at that time.
Okay, so during the summer, if I go to any campus in Tacoma, unless there are exigent circumstances, criminal activity, they should be continuously unlocked?
Yes. If there's events going on, they should be continuously unlocked, open to the public.
During daylight hours, right?
Yes.
Right. Is that the reason?
Director Hines?
But closed at the...
Closed at around 9 p.m. Once it gets dark and we have activity that's not some possible criminal activity, the gates will be locked.
But if there's no criminal activity, so this is a custodial responsibility in the summertime to unlock them in the morning.
Yes.
And then there's a custodian that secures them
in the evenings.
In the evening. And what do we do on the weekends?
We'll leave them open on the weekends.
Director Hines?
That'd be too much overtime.
Chris, did you have something you wanted to add?
Sorry, Tom. We can provide you with a formal policy by tomorrow's board report to clear up any miscommunication.
Thank you. That would be helpful because that's... I want to ensure that there is consistency throughout the district.
Right.
And having 3 school-aged kids, I can tell you that I have experienced inconsistency. So what I want to figure out first is it a flawed policy? Now, if we review the policy and it's pretty good, then I want to understand process, practice, implementation. Is it on building by building level? because there seems to be a perception that there may be a single individual at any given school that gets to make the decision if the public has access to those fields. And I would hope that we could come up with a better process to ensure that there is fair access regardless of geographic location.
And we have a draft policy already started, so.
Procedures.
Procedures.
We're talking about procedures at this point.
Okay, so I hear we're going to get a copy of the existing policy, and then there is a.
These are procedures. They're not policies.
They're procedures.
But there is
not
there is no policy. So I would be interested in pursuing a policy, as we are in the middle of expending over $500 million of public resources, and we have made an investment in playground equipment, in artificial turf, as an opportunity to increase recreational options for kids and families. And so perhaps we need a policy that will provide you with better guidance for those, so that the board can set expectation in stewardship of those dollars, and then you can drive out processes that are consistent with our collective view of how and when those fields should be used. Thank you.
Or when you're finished, I
Yes,
have a
ma'am. Thank you.
question. Back, Debbie probably remembers this, and she's younger than I am, but many of the schools had Metro Parks programs in the summertime on their playgrounds. And I'm wondering, and that was an opportunity later when I was mayor to start feeding kids, and that first started because I knew a lot of kids were going hungry. So I guess what I'm asking is, can we maybe enter into some discussions with Metro Parks about having some, where there are isolated type playgrounds like up or Geiger and areas like that where there isn't much place for kids to go, and having them maybe 2 or 3 days a week, have them run some little program there for the kids. Whether sometimes it was softball or it was just play with the kids, just kind of an organized play. It wasn't, and they did that for many years, because a lot of kids that don't sign up for baseball don't sign up and don't get involved in a lot of that, but would really have a lot of fun just learning how to throw a ball or bat, or learn how to or have coloring or whatever. And we also might maybe be able to incorporate it a little bit more with the summer feeding program too. So it's just a thought for us to look at in the next year, if the board thinks that's something worth looking at. I think we can use, if we're going to have them open, it also might help with what Tom and Chris are talking about making sure that we don't have vandalism if there's somebody there, and there's, because it happens all over, that, and there's lots of great opportunities. So, sometimes the old school way wasn't so bad, and you get a lot of the little neighbor kids who maybe not sign up, and they could do some of the volunteers from the neighbors. Just a thought to go back and to figure out how to touch more kids in the summer and get them into some kind of a, not just hanging out on the street, So anyway, anyone else, any other comments? Debbie?
Yes, I just want to, I went to the teacher training last week, and there was this amazing speaker that came out of, he's lived in Colorado now, and he himself went to 20 elementary or schools in his career, and was born in a family of extreme poverty, and he talked a lot about what made him successful. And he said it was mentors. So it was like the school secretary, it was a playground supervisor. I thought he was so great, and that he should be brought back to our district for a lot of other people. He had just a great story to tell, and it was very, it was really good. So, and then another one on technology, where teachers are going to be replaced by robots, which I do not agree. I do not think that's going to happen. But so.
We all may be at some point.
So that's all I have to say.
Great, thank you. All right.
Director Vial?
Yes, I'm sorry. Our student member, I'm sorry.
I actually have something to say this time.
All right.
So I just wanted to speak on an issue that happened because it's very close to my heart. So just, I think last month, every year, the executive team of the ASB of Mount Homa, and I think other schools as well, go to a camp called CISPIS, and it just helps build leadership. And I mean, a lot of upperclassmen say it's like a life-changing experience. So yeah, we had set up a time to go, and the district canceled on us not even 24 hours before. And we just got an emotionless call and email. And it saddens me that we didn't get no apology for the students nor the parents. And the parents and students both wrote letters and called. And I don't know, I've always had a lot of respect for this district, but I think that was very disrespectful of the district to do. So yeah, I just wanted to know more about that and why we weren't able to go, and they let us know not even 24 hours before. And a lot of students had got time off of work, didn't go on vacations for this exact camp. And I was one of those students because I am an executive. I do have an executive position, and that is also one of the reasons why I chose to run for an executive position. But now I don't have that opportunity, so I will never have that opportunity. So yeah, I just wanted to get more about
Maybe
that.
Mrs. Santorno can look into that.
How many students were supposed to go to this?
It was
Roughly.
about like 9
5 or 6.
or
Okay.
5 or 6. I
Tony?
think it was 6 actually.
Okay.
Wait, we got about 5 different people talking here. Tony, how many were supposed to go?
According to what we had turned in as a travel request was about 5 students, I think,
Okay.
from Mount Tacoma.
Well, I would ask that Josh or Carla look into that and
Sure.
find out
Sure.
why that, or maybe you're aware why that happened. I don't know.
I can tell you that what happened is we didn't have enough chaperones. There wasn't any chaperone, actually, that was going to go with them. And so we tried to put together, with the help of our legal department, an interlocal agreement with them, but we couldn't get it done in time for them to be able to go. And Mount Tacoma tried to get chaperones, but were unable to get any chaperones.
Yes, sir.
The paperwork was turned in late, and so we didn't have a lot of time to respond.
Is there any way that we can maybe make that up to them? Maybe
Well,
a
we tried
one-day
to-
something, or
We tried. It was difficult, and like she said, it was late in the summer that the final decision was made, and there was an opportunity to perhaps go later in the summer, but I don't think members of your team could get away.
No,
at
well,
that time.
they said
Whoa, wait a minute, please. Let her
Oh.
finish, and then I'll let you respond. Thank you.
Yeah, members. We don't know why they couldn't go to the second.
Okay, I think I'd
session.
like to have you and Josh and
Why don't
somebody
we
figure out what
follow up?
happened.
and
Yes.
what we
Follow
can
up
do
and
is-
get back to you, okay? Okay, that'd be good. I'm sorry that happened, but sometimes there's lots of
Oh yeah, I
things in
understand. I'm
play,
just
hon. I know,
Yeah.
which figure out, okay?
Oh, I also have a couple letters that some of my classmates wrote to send. I don't know who you would like me to send them to, but if I can get an email so I could send them, that'd be good.
Just give them to Carla.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, announcement of future board meetings. Next board meeting will be Thursday, September 13th, 2018. That's a 6 o'clock regular board meeting. Thursday, September 20th, study session, and Thursday, September 27th. Again, these are all at 6 o'clock, will be a regular business meeting. Item 18, the Board of Directors will meet in executive session with legal counsel for approximately 30 minutes to discuss potential litigation in accordance with RCW 4230-110. We're going to adjourn our meeting to go down to room 325 because of overflow room, so we'll just go down to the 3rd floor, and we all know what that's down in this end conference room where we did our evaluation meetings and so on. Thank you, Debbie.
President
Okay,
May I just make a couple
Yes, you may,
quick announcements?
please.
Just a reminder to everyone that school starts September 6th.
yes.
The calendar is available there. There's a wonderful community opportunity for kids inside the Pierce County. Sue's Kitchen is here this weekend. It's the only one on the West Coast. There are tickets available. You can go online and buy those tickets for students. You do not have to be a Tacoma Public Schools student. I believe they're $7 per student, and community members can also go. Director Winskill and myself had a chance to go to a little bit of the preview before tonight.
Was it
applications are out for free and reduced lunch rates. Please help families that need those. They can get that information from their schools. They're also available online. That's very important. And then I'd like to thank publicly some of our community partners, Multicare, Director Leon. They rallied with other community partners with GTCF to offer a free day of physicals for students, and hundreds of students got free physicals. It is a critical element for families to get those kind of health screenings, and so to see our community rally together is truly an opportunity to help save lives. So thank you.
Great.
I'll follow up on that too, because it was a record number of students that we got to see from. So I've been doing this before. I was on the board with Tacoma Family Medicine and Multicare. We also got Puyallup Tribal Health Authority to help, community healthcare clinics, residents, and it was wonderful to get the help with busing students from other middle schools up to Lincoln. I was at Lincoln, and we saw 200 students. We've only seen about 100 in the past at different events at First Creek, though, not at Lincoln. So thank you for your support on that.
Great. Thank you. All right, we will adjourn to an executive session for approximate, not to exceed 30 minutes. Is that correct? Yes. All right, thank you, and we're going to go downstairs. Really cramped. I just I'm not now. I'm okay. 3:25.